we're all the same within the human race. Speak with love and act with grace. In order to change, we've got to embrace all the healing of the pain. Times are hard, but I get through with my faith, and that's the truth. Times are hard, but I get through with my faith, and that's the truth. I know that I can change the world, so I won't wait for the world to change. I know that I can change the world, so I won't wait for the world to change. No, I won't wait. I'll be great, and I won't wait. No, I won't wait. I'll be great, and I'll rise up. I'll rise up. I don't care, even if I fall, I'll stand tall through it all. I don't care, I won't give up. I'll rise up. I'll rise up. I don't care, even if I fall, I'll stand tall through it all. I don't care, I won't give up. I'll rise up.
It was a day like any other day. My then wife, now my ex-wife, and I were at the end of our relationship. She's a good person, and it wasn't about that. Just over the years, we grew apart, and like so many other people, it was apparent to everyone in our lives, including ourselves, that we were going to go our separate ways in the future. We had 2 children who were in high school, and we were basically just trying to keep things together until they graduated. So we're just trying to find a way to keep the peace. And I've been driving Harley Davidsons all my life at this point. I got my first Harley Davidson when I was just a very young kid. I had a paper route, and in the town where I grew up in Kings Park, there were just so many trails. And so first things I did is I bought a motorcycle, and from there on I drove all my life. And so that's one of the things that we did occasionally. We would go drive out east, and we would have some barbecue for the afternoon, and then we would drive back. And today was one of those days. And we took a ride out east on my brand new Harley Davidson. I just got this Harley Davidson. I had been on a vacation, and all my Harley Davidsons were so loud. I mean, the neighbors, they would have meetings to elect representatives who would talk to me because I would come home late at night and just making so much noise. But this Harley Davidson, it was like driving a couch down Main Street. It was quiet. It had GPS. It had stereo. Stereo. I'm old, so I say stereo. But it was just a beautiful bike. But it was very quiet. And in retrospect, that's one of the reasons why things happened the way that they happened. So we went out east, great barbecue. On the way back, the road was backed up for miles. And there must have been some sort of road construction going on, emergency construction, because it was a Sunday afternoon. And they normally wouldn't schedule those types of things for a Sunday afternoon. And the bike was big, and we were waiting in traffic for a long time. And then what was going on is that people started driving on the shoulder of the road to go up ahead there was like an intersection where you'd make a right-hand turn. And so people were leaving the road to make a right-hand turn to leave the traffic. And what happened is after that happened several times, I said, okay, I would do the same thing. And I pulled over to the side of the road, and I went down the shoulder, and just as I was approaching the intersection, one of the drivers let a driver from the opposite direction in, a big truck, and they came by and they T-boned me. They square shot into me, and they must have been going pretty fast because, someone let you in. You want to be courteous. You want to jump right in there. They slammed into me really hard. And that was the last thing I remembered for quite a while. In my world, the lights went out. and I had no idea what had happened. And then a long time had gone by. It must have, because when I next opened my eyes, there were emergency workers around me. And I looked around and I saw like things were very different, like things must have happened since last I was here. At this point, I didn't know I was in an accident. And I tried to get up, and the emergency worker was saying, down, down, stay down. And I've just been driving motorcycles all my life, dirt bikes. I've fallen down 1,000 times. And one of the things they always say is, get up right away. And so I went to get up, and the emergency worker was saying, no, stay down. You know, kind of like, remember Rocky, stay down. You know, no, but I wanted to get up. And so as soon as I started to get up, I felt this immense pain in my hip. And my skin was still there, but my bone wasn't connected anymore. And I felt the sharp jag of the bone sticking into my muscles. And I just laid back in excruciating pain. And I remember looking up and like realizing that life was never going to be the same again. I just felt it. It was that feeling. It was just, I knew it. And then I went out. And then the next things I remember, I was rising above the scene. And I was looking down, and I saw the accident. I saw the motorcycle all over the place. I saw all the emergency workers. I saw the very long lines of cars in both directions. And I just kept on rising up towards the clouds. And I kept on going up and up and up. And just as I thought something was going to happen, I started seeing the ground get closer and closer and closer again. And I saw a big round circle on the ground. And I realized I was landing at Stony Brook Hospital. I was in a helicopter. And I was being airlifted to Stony Brook Hospital. And that's the last time I was on this earth for a very long time, at least in the way that we experience it. If I think about things, I was dying. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I was dying. I was in the most gravest of circumstances. I was hit on the side, square on by a truck. My whole left side of my body was severely injured. I suffered a traumatic brain injury. My ex-wife, she was on the back of the motorcycle. She wasn't hit directly. She was thrown off the motorcycle. And anytime you're thrown off a motorcycle, it's serious. But the truck hit me square on. And that was it for a while. And the next things I remember is I was in this place. It was a place so deeply rooted in the way my life is now. I didn't know anything has happened. I didn't even know there was an accident. My whole near-death experience, or what I like to call my afterlife, near-afterlife experience, was centered around these three places. The first place was a place where I learned the language of the universe, how the universe works, how spirituality works. As far as spirituality, I was a 0 on the spirituality scale. I was always a very intense person. I was an intense person. And I was a good person. I wasn't far from a perfect person. But spirituality, a 0. I was a Catholic and Christmas and Easter Catholic. But no, spirituality. And so this first place was to teach me the language of the universe, to teach me about spirituality. And this was a work scene. It was a scene, I'm a computer guy, and it was centered around computers. And I was helping people with their computer problems. But the things I was helping them with had nothing to do with computers, and I learned that later on. The second place was a neighborhood pub. And I was being hired as a manager, and I was managing the pub. And I was teaching the young children, the barmaids and the barbacks, how to work in this place. But what I was there for is I was there to apply the language of the universe, to apply the things that I've learned, the things to be tested. And the last place was a scene overlooking a waterway. In the town where I live in Kings Park, we call it the Bluff. And I sat there at each and every sunset, and I watched the sunset with friends. And I contemplated things that had just recently happened. So those are the three places. It's the work, it's the pub, it's the Bluff. I'll tell the story, each place separated from the other, but they all happened in sequence. And what I mean is that there are no days there. There's no time there. And not in the sense that we experience here. And what I mean by that is like, here, what is time? Time is measured by the sun rising, the sun setting. It's measured by food cooking, appointments in the future. People grow old. People are born. There's nothing like that there. Time is measured by your spiritual growth, your understanding of things. And as you grow, time moves on. And so, if you don't do anything, time doesn't move. But if you're doing things, you're learning, you're growing, time flies by and is extremely blissful. And so in the first place, the first things I started to notice is that I saw people from my life, people in a work setting, and I was helping them with their computers. And I recognized them as themselves. But as time went on, I started to notice something. As I started to notice that there were people there that I last saw 20 years ago, and they look exactly like I remember them. And there are people that I know now. They look exactly the way I remember them. But as time went on, I started to see people who I knew as young people. I started to see them as older people. And then people I knew as older people, I started to see them as young people. And each time I saw them, they were very different than the way that I saw them before. And then I started to see men who I knew as men. I started to see them as women. Not as men dressed in drag, but really incarnated as a woman. And what I was beginning to learn was that I was beginning to be able to see the spirit inside people. That part of you that doesn't change. It doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are, how anything about you, boy or girl. It's that infinite part of yourself that was never born. It never dies. It just grows, but it's what you see. It's the energy around them. And that's the first lesson that I learned. I learned that everything has a spirit, an infinite spirit, a part of you that never dies. You think of it, sometimes people speak of reincarnation. It's like born as you and dying as you. But no, there's a continuation of consciousness. There's part of you that goes on forever, and you here are just a part of that. And that's what I began to see in people. I began to see that spirit. And then as time goes on, as I started to feel that spirit, I didn't have to look into people's eyes anymore to see their spirit. I felt the energy. I felt the energy in the situation. I felt them. I knew they were here. And that's when I learned another really important lesson. I learned that everything has a spirit. That birds and dogs and cats and plants, the rocks, everything we have has a spirit. It all has an energy. The energies are different. But everything has a spirit. And that's when I learned another important lesson, is that we're all connected. There's a similarity in all those spirits. It's not like everything is different. We're all connected. This is where science and spirituality comes together in the sense like there was the Big Bang. From one comes everything. And that's true in the spiritual sense. It's like cells in a body. Like each cell has its own life. It has its own desire to live and to grow, to reproduce, to seek out food and to just to live. But all of those cells together make up you. And you have a consciousness that is beyond those cells. Those cells may not know of your consciousness, or at least not in the sense that you know it. And that's what I learned, is that all of our spirits, we are together as one, and we create a consciousness. And that consciousness is the Creator. The Creator and the creation are one. Not different, not two. Everything you see, like we learned in religion, is like, God is everywhere. God's everywhere because God is everything. God is the rocks. God is you. God is it's just everything. And this is all the early lessons that I learned in that place. And then once I learned those lessons, then I had to live my life over again. Every moment of my life. But with this new knowledge in me, now everything changed. Things that happened on the schoolyard, with girlfriends, with parents. All of a sudden now I could see people's spirits. And I could feel people's spirits. And why everyone was there. It had nothing to do with what was going on at the time. Everyone has their life path, their reason for being here, and that is to learn, to grow as a spirit, to do your part in the universe. And I relived my life with that knowledge. And then once I was done with my life, I saw more, because I've learned so much more from my life. And then now I received such a beautiful sense of bliss. I mean, the bliss was just immense. Every time I relived my life over and over again, each time I grew with it, each time I went back and I went to all the schoolyards, I went through all of those relationships, I went through all these things. Each time I felt so much better. But the most miraculous thing is I learned is some of my most painful experiences in my life were the most important, the most value that I had, the most things I learned, and the things that I learned the most bliss from. It really was. And from that, as I learned that I can't have hate or animosity towards anyone who brought me these bad times. And I certainly couldn't feel fault in myself for bad things that I've done, like to feel guilty. I don't know if that sounds right, but all of a sudden everything was okay, because everything was a valued experience that I learned from. And then each time that I would relive my life and I would grow, this went on for what seemed like infinity. I was only in the coma for 3 weeks, but when I was in the place, which I call the place between here and there, I was there for infinity. And I was there for a nanosecond. It's a tough thing to explain. But another thing is I learned there is I started to think about everybody who I saw there. And I started to think, is this a dream or is it real? And if it's real, is this just a show for Stephen? Or are these people really here? Like, what is my situation? At this point, I don't know why it didn't occur to me that I wasn't someplace, that I was someplace else. It was so deeply rooted into my experience in life. I'm not sure. There were times when I was so spiritually aware that this couldn't be happening. It's like being lucid in a dream or something. It's tough to explain. But then when I thought about this some more, I thought, this is real. I felt it. This wasn't a show for Steve. I was here. This was real. And if this was real, what does that mean? Does that mean the person who I'm looking at, who I know is alive, are they here, but are they on earth at the same time? Like, how How could this be? And then I started to think to myself, is that your infinite spirit, what I've learned from, your infinite spirit, does that go on hiatus when you're here? Or is your infinite spirit still aware while you are here? And can you be here and be in many other places at the same time? I don't know. Like I said, my whole experiences were in this place. I didn't have any spiritual training before this. But these are things that some of the lessons that I learned in that place. Some of the lessons I didn't realize until afterwards, until other parts of my experiences. But after a while, I stopped learning in this place. And so in the beginning, when I spoke of the 3 places, the first place took up most of my time, while the other 2 places took up a little bit of my time. That was the way it was in the beginning. But towards the middle part of my time there, the pub took up most of my time. And then at the end of my experience, the bluff took up most of my time. And so, but each place, when I stopped learning there, the focus changed to the next place. And in the pub, the neighborhood pub, an environment I was not unfamiliar with at the time. And I was stood before the bar owner. And the bar owner was a retired charter boat captain. And his wife was a barmaid, bartender, and like 20 years ago they bought the place and they ran it for a long time, and they were looking to retire, so they wanted someone to manage the place. And so I was brought into this situation, and I would meet with the bar owner every day, and he would give me my instructions to train the kids how to do their tasks. And as soon as the bar owner would leave and I would stand before the kids would scatter and they would go away. And I didn't understand why. This happened every day. No matter what happened, is I would stand in front of the bar owner, they would give me the instructions, I would see the kids, and they would scatter. And I couldn't get in control of the situation. And once again, this is so much like my life, is that I didn't know I was anyplace else. And so finally, and the bar owner's wife, I didn't understand why she was there. She would sit there and she would just pray. And she'd look at me with very loving eyes, but I didn't understand what role she was doing there. And so this went on for quite a long time. And then finally, one day, the bar owner touched me on my arm and my shoulders and looked into my eyes. And all of a sudden, things changed. I realized that this bar was just a stage. And I was here to learn and apply some of the lessons that I've learned. And I looked into the bar owner's eyes, and I realized I was looking into myself. That bar owner was really my infinite self. And they were guiding me in this lesson that I had to learn before the kids. And I was aware of the grace in the bar owner. I could see things. I couldn't see his experiences, but I could see how he felt about his experiences. And it was all good. There was a certain grace that I learned from being there. And it took me over. And then I started to look at the bar owner, and he had like a aura around him, an energy that you can see, but that energy was reflective of their spirituality and their growth. And I could see that in the bar owner's wife. I could see that same aura. But the kids didn't have any aura. But at least now, when I stood before the bar owner and I felt that grace, then I stood before the kids. I started to notice some things about the kids. First off is that the way they gazed at me and the way they behaved, it was very similar to like the way your dog or your cat relates to your animals, in the sense that they could be so attentive, but in some other ways you're out with your dog and it's such a wonderful animal, then a deer runs out and it goes and chases after the deer and it comes back like nothing's wrong, or your cat brings home like a dead whatever on your thing and you think it's a present or something. But there's something, you give them human characteristics, but at some point they do something that makes you believe that no, they're not human. And that's what I got from these kids, is that in the end, it seemed like they were spirits who have yet to have a human experience. And I should have saw that, because that's part of the test, is that from the other place I learned to see energy, I learned to see the spirit and everything, but as soon as I saw the kids, I couldn't see this. It wasn't until I made that connection that now I could see these kids, that I was there to prepare them for a human experience. And so I would stand before the bar owner, and then I would stand before the kids. And I could see in the same way that I learned from the bar owner, just by being in his grace, that the kids learn from me in that same way, that they can't see, like read my mind and my experiences, but they can feel the grace and find the path themselves in their own ways. And those were some very important lessons. I learned there is that everyone is a guru and everyone's a yogi. Everyone's a teacher, everyone's a student. And so you learn, you show. It's all part of the circle of life of things. We're all teachers and we're all students. And another thing I learned is that the teacher inside of you, nobody said, Stevie, you had to learn this, you had to do this. It's by seeing things and experiencing them. My inner teacher within me, that's what gave me this knowledge and this wisdom on how to apply it. And then finally, as I learned that perhaps when the spirit is forever, perhaps it's not the spirit is in the highest form. Like spirits grow like people. And so maybe those kids, their next incarnation was going to be a human incarnation. And so perhaps when we first come into spirit form, that they were not in spirit form like in the human sense. Like perhaps we may be an animal, and then we're humans, and then it's all different types of levels that we learn and grow, and that spirit develops. Some of my most beautiful experiences were with those kids. I don't know how to put into words, but in so many ways, like I learned so much and I felt so much. It was kind of like raising your own kids. It's like, it's why people have children. It's part of the human incarnation. And I felt it with those children there. And it was just a beautiful, beautiful experience. But then after a while, I stopped learning things there, and I wasn't needed anymore. Things changed over a period of time, and that's where it was in each one of those places. You lived the reason why you were there. And each day, I use the term loosely, but it was a blissful experience. It really was. I loved it. I really did. And then at the end, I sat at the bluff with two of my friends and would watch the sunset every day. And one of my friends Joey. He was an old Kings Parker, and he had broke his neck in high school, and this was like back in the '60s, and he had to have like a spinal fusion in his neck in order and he moved like this, like he had a broken spine, but he's a funny guy. He's a really good old Kings Parker, and I really loved him a lot. And then fellow John, he gave the readings in church in St. Joseph's, and when he talked, he was like the voice of God. He was like out of central casting, Anytime anyone passed, you have Johnny out there, and he would give the eulogy, and he was just such a great guy. And he suffered from diabetes, and he had a problem with his left leg, but they were good guys. They were much older than me. They were in their 70s and stuff. But we would sit there and we'd watch the sunset every day, and that's where I would contemplate, like many of the things that some of the lessons that I learned from those places. It wasn't when I was there. It was when I was sitting at the bluff with Joey and Johnny and watching the sunset, where I meditated and contemplated on those other experiences. And but something was changing. First off, I was feeling a sense of urgency, like something was going to happen. And I was starting to think about Joey and Johnny, and it came to the realization that this can't be real. Because Joey and Johnny, they're both dead. They had both died just a few months earlier. And I knew I couldn't be there with them. It's not like we talked. And no one talks there. It's like you think it. But it's not like telepathy, like Star Trek days. It's not like that. It's the awareness. You just have a sense of awareness about everybody and everything. You know what they're thinking or what they want you to know. You see things. It's not like you're reading their mind like you're a voyeur or something. It's not like that. It's just a sense of being that you just know things. And when I came to the realization that they were both here, but they were dead, I wanted to know why they were here. I knew something was not wrong, but something was, everything that I've experienced can't be real. Like I can't be in this place. Like something's going on. And so I wanted to ask them why they were here. And each sunset that went by, there was something building. I don't know why. There was just a sense of urgency. And it finally got to the point that if I didn't talk to them now, I'll never get the chance to talk to them. And so in my own mind, I asked them what they were doing here. And they said because they want to make sure that I'm okay. And then, as I watched the sunset for the 10,000th time, instead of it getting dimmer, it got brighter and brighter and brighter, so bright that I had to shield my eyes, and it was painful. And then finally, when I had the opportunity to open my eyes again, I was in my hospital room, and my mother and my sister were standing over me. And that was the last time I was in that place, at least in the way that I've explained it, for a very long time. I was in my hospital room, and at first things I didn't think anything was wrong with me. One of the first things my mother said to me was that you've been in an accident, and you're going to be okay, but you've been in an accident, and you've been out for a while, and I still didn't remember the accident, but I was in a hospital, so I was starting to think like like maybe I got my bell rung and I felt fine, but I had tubes in me and I couldn't talk and I was tied down. And, but I was like, I want to get out of here. Like I didn't think anything, I felt fine. I just wanted to leave, and I thought like they were milking me for the insurance or something crazy like that. And I just wanted to get out, and that wasn't happening for a long time. And so I would sit in my hospital bed and I would think. And I would start to think about that place. And I start to think about the spirits. And the same way that I recognize like older people and younger people, I recognize the spirit. I recognized the bartender's wife. I knew who that was. It's so odd because that, now that I could see things in a certain way, some people who I was very close with, I realized I really wasn't that close with. And maybe some people who I knew just casually, now I saw their spirit and I really understood their role and things about them that I wanted to know so much more about. I saw people in a different light. But this bartender's wife, I knew exactly who that was. Because I could see the spirit. And I wanted to talk to them. I wanted to talk to them right away. I wanted to tell them that I knew stuff that I wanted to tell them. But I couldn't talk. I had these tubes in my mouth and I was tied down. And I just kept on thinking. I kept on saying, I tried to talk. I wanted to say phone. I wanted my phone because I wanted to contact this person. And the day came when they took the tube out of my mouth, and all of a sudden I could talk. Like I couldn't talk, but all I could say was phone. I just wanted phone. I wrote it on a piece of paper. I want my phone. It's kind of like E.T. Phone home, phone home. I just wanted my phone. I don't know why. I know why it was so important to me, but I just wanted to contact that person and let them know things. And even when after they took the tubes out, is that I was still tied down. And it's the first time I was ever tied down that I had my clothes on. It was an odd experience. And it was quite a battle just getting to that point, because I was on the respirator for so long, and they didn't want to take me off the respirator. And my other sister was a respiratory therapist, and she was very, very wise to the way hospitals work. And they wanted to insert a tracheal tube in my throat because I was intubated for so long on this breathing machine. And she was, no, you can't do that. And I know if she wasn't there for that, my life would have taken a very different turn, and I wouldn't be here explaining this story. I know things. If that would have happened, I would not be here. And I think that's why, like life paths are. She was a brilliant lady. She graduated a year early from high school. She only went to a short program, and she became a respiratory therapist. And it's not like her only reason for life was being there at that moment. But I'm just saying that if it wasn't for her there at that moment saying no, take him off the respirator, let him breathe on his own, things would have taken a different turn. And after they took me off the respirator, I just got lazy. You're on this medication for a long time, and you just get used to someone else breathing for you. And so after they unhooked me, I had the tubes out of me. I just phone. And then when I finally got my phone, I saw it wasn't my phone, but my contacts were there. And I saw my friend, who I knew it was, and I sent her a text. And that's my friend Kathy.
I'll rise up, I don't care, even if I fall, I'll stand tall, through it all, I don't care, I won't give up, I'll rise up, I don't care, even if I fall, I'll stand tall, through it all, I don't care, I won't give up.